get a lot of submissions these days in December, considering the fact that my original and first concern about doing this was wondering if anybody would ever send this work. Now we get quite a lot. And although we still get things in the mail, most of our submissions come electronically by way of a cloud-based submission program. So sometimes I read things first, sometimes one of our editors reads things first, and a lot of people call that pile of mass submissions a slush pile. But that's a term I don't really care for, because it's really my favorite thing to do, is read all these submissions that come in that are about anything and everything. And it's the best part of the process. And the piece that's really the best is finding that story or poem that just rivets you, that makes you say, this is why I'm doing this. So it was very early on a Saturday morning in March of last year that I got a text from Lauren, our managing editor at the time. And the text said, I just read the best story that's ever come to us. Please read it ASAP. Paper Lantern. And then in all caps, I love it. So I sat down and read Paper Lantern immediately, and I loved it too. An hour after Lauren's text, I was sending an email to Anna Boorstein accepting Paper Lantern. I've read it probably 50 times at least since then, while we were editing it, while we were laying it out, while we were proofreading it, and I love it every time I read it. It was December's nominee for a Pushcart Prize this year, and I'm still not tired of this story. Its author, Anna Boorstein, worked in the film industry and then raised her 3 children. And although she says she stopped writing for a long time, her writing has the confidence and the assurance of someone who has never taken a day away from her figurative pen. So reading an excerpt from Paper Lantern. It's my pleasure to introduce Anna Boorstein.
It's a very long story, which will surprise no one who knows me. And my kids always say that I'm the queen of backstory, and so I've included the first section, and then I kind of jump ahead to a scene that I like. Paper Lantern. It started with the dinosaurs and the earthquake. Actually, it started when I brought home a new insert for our Japanese lamp. Its wooden frame held squares of rice paper, small screens that projected cutout shapes of sailboats, spaceships, or in our case, colorful trains moving in circles around the lamp's center wire. I removed the train insert and lowered a new cylinder. Silhouettes of turquoise, magenta, and yellow dinosaurs began their slow trundle, moving faster as the light warmed. Will was 3.5, and dinosaurs were his new obsession. We watched together as the purple Brachiosaurus followed the lime green raptor, which ran under the peach pterodactyl, which swooped over a volcano in back of a yellow stegosaurus. He punctuated his rapt attention with patter about dinosaurs. I watched the crude images of long-ago terrors, their colors captured by the confines of the lamp. I watched Will watching them, enchanted. He was revved up, bouncing on his toes. I worried that as soon as I left the room to throw some dinner together, Will would forget the lessons he learned about the lamp. Not only is the light bulb hot, so don't touch it, that every part of the lamp is fragile, from the rice paper to the easily crumpled inserts. The next morning came the earthquake. It hit around 5 a.m. I had just gotten back to sleep after a prolonged series of sequential panics about work, the inadequacies of Will's occasional babysitter, and my inability to sell my late mother's condo. As a native of California's restless ground, I know what to do in an earthquake. I made my way unsteadily down the short hall to Will's room and got him out of bed. We sat on the living room floor in the shelter of the couch and listened to the plates and glasses rattle in their cabinets. Will fell back asleep in my lap with his thumb in his mouth. My heart was going too fast for me to sleep, but eventually I calmed down enough to doze, waking as aftershocks jolted through the house. No one tells you about the noise an earthquake makes, especially when you're inside. It's the thing you notice second. The first thing, of course, is that you and everything around you is shaking. We were lucky. No real damage other than about 12 electricity-free hours. The preschool had closed, so I reorganized my day, The city was a mess anyway. After listening to 15 minutes of news on my battery-operated radio, I decided that I might as well close the shop and called my 2 employees and told them not to come in. No one would buy flowers today anyway. As soon as consciousness hit him, Will jumped up, all memories of the house shaking seemingly erased, and ran back to his bedroom to look at the lamp. He couldn't understand why it didn't work, and when I finally explained it to his satisfaction, he wanted me to substitute a candle for the light bulb. I told him absolutely not. A flame would burn up the dinosaurs. That's when he started stomping around in circles, pretending to be the big brachiosaurus who made the earth shake. Dinosaurs made the earth shake. Dinosaurs made the earth shake. I couldn't get it out of my head. I'm a busy woman. Well, the sun is up, I'm Will's only parent, plus I have the flower shop to take care of. Those things keep me blissfully distracted from what goes on inside my head. But in the middle of the night, my worries seem to congregate and shout for attention. Either I can't go to sleep right away, or more commonly, I sit bolt upright around 3 a.m. and try to figure out how to order the world to keep Will and me safe. This is followed, typically, by a long stretch of wondering how I'm going to stay awake the next day, because I will have had 5, then 4, then 3 hours of sleep. The earthquake hit right after one such worry fest. And when Will took up his dinosaur stomp the next day, I realized that in all my conscientious worrying, I had clearly made an omission. I had never included choose your paper lantern carefully on my list of safety do's and don'ts. I made a mental note to be careful with my next choice of inserts. They came in all themes, and avoid those with fireworks, circuses, or wild animals. We stayed home for 3 days before the city returned to more or less normal operating procedures. In a way, it was like a mini holiday. We read Will's favorite books, we played with Legos, and the marble course, my favorite toy. Back at preschool, Will calmly told his favorite teacher that the dinosaurs did it. She dutifully reported his phrase back to me as an example of imaginative coping skills. The teachers themselves were in pretty bad shape, as were many of the other toddlers and parents. I was worried that Will would catch their panic, but he seemed oblivious. And so it faded, as disasters do, with life returning to somewhat normal. Will sat with the dinosaur books I brought home from the library and tried to echo their interminable names as I read to him. He memorized dinosaur specifications and talked about where dinosaur bones were found. But almost every night, he stomped around the playroom, making the ground shake. And when he went to sleep, the revolving lamp had to be on. It was his nightlight, his window into the Mesozoic age. He'd put his thumb in his mouth, turn blearily onto his side to face the lantern, and try to keep his eyes open as long as he could to capture the dinosaur parade. The earthquakes were getting more frequent. There was so much speculation in all the media at the preschool with my customers who eyed the glass flower cases warily that it was hard to avoid the dire predictions. The San Andreas Fault was awake and at it again. Los Angeles would finally fall into the sea. Added bonus, and the sea was rising because of global warming. Evil Californians had made God angry and he was having his revenge. Alternately, human civilization is so destructive that Mother Earth was having her revenge. Earthquake standards were scrutinized. The newspapers offered daily articles about minimizing stress hormones through diet. Advertisements for sleep aids soared, and the California housing market was poised for a dive. People were scared to drive over bridges or stop under overpasses. They discussed their nightly sleep amounts and checkout lines, and pretty much everyone had a prescription for Xanax. My business was down a little, not so much that I was in trouble, but I could see trouble coming. Through it all, Will slept like a lamb. For Will's 4th birthday, I ordered a dinosaur bouncy castle. We bought dinosaur invitations and put one in each cubby at the preschool. Will approved all the snacks and decorations. I chose a volcano cake from the surprising array at the supermarket. It came with small plastic dinosaur figures that I thought Will might like to keep. He helped me hang crepe paper and ran around the backyard with a balloon, laughing at the funny squeaking sound it made when he let the air out. The kids were due at 11, and it was all I could do to keep him from exhausting himself before they arrived. It would all have been such a success if Daniel hadn't gone into Will's room. I told both kids and parents that other than the bathroom, the inside of the house was off limits, but Daniel managed to go on an uninvited tour anyway. The lamp was on in Will's room, and Daniel had taken it down and pulled out the insert when Will passed by on his way from the bathroom. I heard the screaming from outside and ran in to find Daniel standing with the insert behind his back saying, "Which hand? Come on, which hand?" Will was balanced on his toes, yelling, "I can see it, give it back, it's mine and it's special to me." "Daniel," I said, mustering patience, "that belongs to Will. Can you give it back to him?" Daniel just stood there. I couldn't tell if he understood that he was being mean and breaking the rules or not. Cheryl, Daniel's mom, came up behind us. "Daniel, honey, what are you doing in here? The party's outside." Will turned to Cheryl and demanded, "Make him give it back." Cheryl chose this occasion for her version of a teachable moment. "Don't you like to share your things, Will?" I would have exploded, but Will got there first. "It's mine and he's in my room and it's special to me," I added. "It is extremely special to him. Could you ask Daniel to give it back?" Daniel kept the insert behind his back and ran to the other side of the bed. Cheryl made a kids will be kids face. I held out my hand. "Daniel, please give me that." Greg, Daniel's father, came in and put his hands on Cheryl's shoulders. "What's happening?" I focused on Daniel again. "Please give it back," I said. "It's very important to Will." In a moment of quick thinking, Daniel said, "It's important to me too." And Greg chimed in, "Why can't Daniel have it for a second?" Very helpful. Will began to cry. I said between gritted teeth, "Daniel, you need to give that to me right now." In the space between my words and whatever Daniel might have answered, there was a big crack. The house lurched on its foundation. Daniel shrieked and threw the insert in the air. I caught it by an edge as Will ran toward me. Greg and Cheryl attempted to soothe Daniel, who had begun a full meltdown. I grabbed Will up onto my hip and lurched around the other toys Daniel had left on the floor. I stumbled down the hall toward the back door and the rest of the party, stopping to stow the lamp insert on the top shelf of my bookcase. Will had his head on my shoulder, his breath slowing, tears just drying. I kissed him on the cheek and we made our way outside. Then another rumble and Daniel's parents emerged from the house. I couldn't tell if this Templar was bigger or smaller than the first. Kids kept jumping in the bouncy castle like nothing happened. Daniel cried in Greg's arms as the back gate clanged. It was definitely time to wrap this thing up. I shouted, "Cake time!" and headed for the kitchen. For a special treat at dinner, Will and I ate leftover pizza in front of the television. Will bathed and I let him carefully place the insert back into the lamp. We sat and watched it go around, speeding up as the light bulb warmed the center wire. Will said, "The dinosaurs were so mad at Daniel." I pushed the still damp hair back from his forehead. "How do you know?" "Because they made the earth shake." "Oh," I said, "but how do you know they did that because of Daniel?" "Because I could tell." "How could you tell?" Really, I wanted to know this. "They told me." "How?" "I don't know, they just did." Will jumped a Triceratops figure from the bed table to his pillow and back. "When did they tell you? Since Daniel was here? While he was here?" What was I doing? Shouldn't I be putting the kibosh on these kinds of magical thoughts right away? But I was curious, and even though I didn't think Will would have answers, I wanted to know what he was thinking. "Do they use words?" "Not really, but I understand them." Will gave me a big grin. "I'm special to them." I wondered if there was really any harm in letting Will think there were fairy god dinosaurs. "And they're special to you," I said. Will nodded. He scrunched up the corner of the bedspread as he thought. I didn't want him to break it. Sometimes when he's mad, he breaks things. "It wasn't your fault. You know that," I said. Will nodded again. "The dinosaurs took care of it, didn't they?"